All right, welcome everyone to our January Apereo microconference, community conversations about openness and discussions on openness. So I'd like to thank you for joining us on behalf of the Apereo board. I'm Wilma Hodges, the Apereo board vice chair, and I'll be introducing our speakers today. Before I do, I just want to remind you, if you've not already signed up, I do encourage you to sign up for our Apereo communications. That way you'll get updates and news about all of our various open source communities and events like this microconference and other events where Apereo will be. So I do encourage you to sign up for that. If you go to our website, you can scroll down into in the footer area. You should see a link for Join Apereo Communications. So that will allow you to subscribe and stay in the know with all of our events. I'd also like to thank our microconference sponsors. JMA Consulting provides Civi CRM. That's the registration system that you use to register for today's event. We also have a Big Blue Button sponsor for our virtual meeting space, which is what you're using right now. And of course, our Apereo community of open source advocates. We always thank them for making these micro conferences happen. Today's topic is deploying AI-enhanced student information system workflows using Drupal and ECA via OpenCampus. So today we're going to be learning about how an open source solution built on Drupal enabled universities to replace their legacy commercial SIS and ERP infrastructure through OpenCampus, and how these institutions are now collaborating to create and share solutions within the platform, which serves more than 1 million users in the European higher ed community. So our speakers for that today are Dr. Kirsten Heiss. He's the founder and managing director of OpenCampus, a European initiative to provide an open ecosystem for higher education management. And Melissa Mitchell. Melissa is the head of business development and product innovation at OpenCampus, where she's responsible for steering the company's growth and spearheading the development of innovative educational producers. So before I turn it over to them, just a quick note. This session is being recorded, so you'll have the opportunity to view the recording or forward it to your friends after the fact. Also, as we have the chat running throughout, so if you have questions, feel free to type them into the chat. Our presenters will try to address them as they go, so feel free to put those questions into the chat when you have them. And with that, I am going to stop my screen share and hand it off to Melissa so that she can share her slides.
Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone for being here today. We're really excited to talk to you about what we've been doing at OpenCampus. I'm just going to bring up the slides here. And before we jump into all the technical aspects of OpenCampus and the evolution of our product and where we are today, I thought it'd be interesting just to share a bit about how we got to where we are. So to give you a bit of insight into who we each are and our journey and how we came to be working in Drupal and creating this solution for everyone. So Kirsten, if you want to go ahead and give a little introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Mel, for the pre-introduction. So as you can see on the slide, the funny story about myself is I used to be a medical doctor. So quite a shift from being medical doctor into going into IT, but that's basically what happened. So I was working for Gartner after my clinical time as a resident. And from Gartner, did a lot of IT projects and was hired by the United Nations Development Program. And my job there at the United Nations was implementing student information systems in Eastern European countries. And the landscape of what was available as SIS systems was not really appealing, and that was quite painful experience. And that's when we came up with the idea that we actually want to create a highly flexible, actually a framework for institutions that would allow them to build what they need to build, and an open framework that doesn't have the price tag that you usually see with existing systems. So that was how OpenCampus and the idea behind that was born. And with that, I'll hand back over to you, Mel.
Yeah, and so I actually got to OpenCampus and introduced to Drupal and the open source community via quite a different route. I was working in Bloomberg after university. I was part of their ventures team, which was launching new businesses globally to Bloomberg's client base. And I was lucky enough to work on a product that was higher education focused. So we were basically implementing a technology at universities all around the world, biggest, smallest universities, literally everywhere. And that was a really interesting insight into how the infrastructure is, how it works, and what the challenges are. And so I actually left and started my own edtech company doing a career volunteering platform, which was helping students take their volunteering experiences and map that in software to be able to show to employers the skills and experience that they have when they leave university in a meaningful way. And one of the things that happened when I was visiting all these campuses was that I would hear from everyone, okay, this is great, we love what you're doing, this is another wonderful software, but we have 50, 100 different technologies on campus, and why can't we just have one system that does everything? Why can't we have one system with all of these technologies in one? And I met Kirsten at a edtech startup in London. He was doing exactly that. And so that's how I came to be at OpenCampus and was introduced to Drupal and the whole open source world, which has been really interesting and exciting and motivating as well. So that's a little bit about us and how we got into this journey. But where are we now?
Yeah, so one of the foundational aspects about what we wanted to build and the pain points, what we saw in existing SIS solutions was there's a lot of different processes, right, that a SIS covers. So, and usually it goes beyond that, right? So we are actually talking about SIS, LMS, ERP functionality. And the problem usually is institutions have specific needs based on their processes that might alter from what a standard functionality, let's say an application and admission tool or facility management tool or a course booking tool would offer, right? So, and even within the institution, depending on whether that's bachelor or master's or PhD level, the requirements might slightly change. And the existing landscape usually offers you standard functionality and you can use it as is. You can then work with Excel and other tools if you have alternating processes. But that didn't make us happy. So we wanted something that allowed us to use the same technology, the same engine to offer all of these functions. Basically, every piece of software in the system is based on the same technical framework. It's all Drupal and ECA, no matter which functionality you're using. And if you go back one slide, I'm not there yet. Taking too long. So no matter whether it's resource management, whether it's payment processes, whether it's your curriculum management or courses, like totally different applications, they are all built with the same underlying architecture. And the advantage of that is they can all work with each other, right? Because they share the same databases, share the same technological framework. And as they're built with that framework, institutions can modify them. Yeah? So it's not that lock-in anymore that you have to call the vendor and ask if they can do a change request project on your functionality, which is highly expensive and takes a lot of time. So in this case, we have all the components that you want working together, and you can build as many more components as you think you need for your environment. And now, Melissa, if you go to the next slide, just to highlight what the underlying technology is. So we are working with Drupal. Drupal is known as a content management system, but it's actually way more than that. It's really a web development platform, and it has one really nice aspect, that is you can have fieldable entities, which means you decide what information you want to store, whether that's a course, whether that's a student, whether that's a certificate in the curriculum. You can always decide how the data looks like that you want to store. It doesn't have to be predefined by a vendor. You design what fields, what information you want to store. And the next aspect is that same freedom we wanted to offer when you design the functionality. So we wanted to give the institution the freedom to decide what they want to store, but they should also have the freedom to decide what the functionality should do. And that part was then done by ECA. ECA is a workflow modeler, but the extent of that workflow modeler is actually far beyond what you would see in many other applications like KissFlow or others. You can really design software with that. And the way how you do it is you just use BPMN modeling to basically create code in Drupal. So it's a no-code platform, and our institutions are using that themselves to build new applications, to modify existing applications in this grid that I showed you before. So it's really something that the institutions learned how to use, and independent from OpenCampus as a company, they are creating functionality. So we really brought the whole SIS creation, SIS LMS ERP creation, back into the hands of the institutions, and they're even sharing what they created. So they create workflows for specific needs and share that across the network of universities. So they built in Europe, they built a network where they empower each other with the creations in there. And that's not only what happens within the functionality that they designed. We have this endpoint builder aspect here. We also use ECA to manage the interfaces to other systems, because that's another important aspect. Usually you don't see a monolithic architecture where one system runs everything at the campus, right? So OpenCampus needs to work with other systems. And we wanted to make it really easy for these other systems to communicate to OpenCampus. So what we are doing here is we are using the flexibility of Drupal to create API endpoints. And the way how we configure those is through ECA. So we're again using the graphical interface to configure the APIs, which again allows the institutions to manage these endpoints, and they don't have to call us as a vendor or other technical supplier. If something changes in their IT infrastructure with the other systems, they can always use the modeler to manage the endpoints. And what you get with that is, when it gets so easy to allocate all the information from the other systems, they are even using OpenCampus to substitute functionality that they are missing in their other systems. Yeah, they're just taking the data out of the other systems, modifying it in OpenCampus and sending it back. Yeah, because it's easier to do that and build the functionality in OpenCampus than ask the vendor of a proprietary system to add the functionality. And the last interesting aspect, what we also do from within ECA, we control the infrastructure environment. So we have functionality in ECA that allows us to fire off servers in AWS, create databases, create networks. So we can control the whole AWS infrastructure as code platform with all the services that AWS is offering, including the AI services from ECA. So basically the ECA tool can create the technical infrastructure it needs on demand from within the software. So yeah, that's, I don't know how well you can see that, but it gives you a brief overview. That's one of our institutions. And what you see in the left column is actually all the business processes, the functions that they have there. And it starts with the whole student lifecycle, applications. They manage the payment processes in the application submission part. They manage the courses, the schedules, even the placements, internships, like things that are usually in other pieces of software, thesis management. And during COVID, they started even managing the immunizations. So a completely different aspect actually that we see in here. They manage all the facilities, the resources, the contracts of the teachers, the evaluations, the billing for external teachers. So far into the realm of ERP and financial management and HR. Yeah? So because they can, they can just add the processes that they want, embed them to the processes that exist in the SIS, the area of assessment management, where they create question databases, where they actually create the exams in the system. They manage all the quality assessment in their checking the differentiation level and the predictability in the questions. They do the research management. Yeah, so that's usually also other pieces of software. They embedded all of that here. The projects, the funding, the monitoring of the cost, abstract management, publications management. So you see, it's huge what they created, and it's really far beyond the SIS part, going into LMS, ERP, research management, because all of what these functions usually do is processing digital information. And if you can choose what you want to store and how you want to process that, there's actually no limit.
Kirsten, did you want to log in and share your screen now?
I have to pull that to myself, right? Take
yeah,
presenter. I'm taking it from you. Yeah. Yeah. To just have a look into that. That's basically what I just showed you here. A huge amount of functions that they have with very specific elements, right? If you just look at the applications part, they set the rank. Then they have payment processes for the fee for the application. Then when you get an interview, so there's a whole logic already in the application part. And you see how vast that is beyond that element. And
Kirsten, we're not seeing your screen, so.
Oh no,
you have presenter rights, but you'll need to click the share button at the bottom.
Thanks for the heads up. Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. Yeah, so that's basically what we just saw in the video. So the overall extent of what they're doing in the system. I have a simplified version to show actually what's going on, that from the perspective of a student. So standard things is like in a SIS, you would have the calendar, you can see where you are at, like typical elements of a lifecycle management system, where you have the curriculum, you can create the transcripts from the system. Students can book courses. There's of course lots of logic behind that. Which course can I book? What should I do? They have the filters by curriculum. So standard SIS functionality, how you know it from other systems, but all of that, all the functionality that we see here is just coming from Drupal ECA, and what we're seeing here are Drupal views, which means all of these filters, all of the items that I see here, that is not hard-coded interfaces. This is something that we can always edit. And I'll unmasquerade from this view, and you can now see how I can actually edit that. So if I go into a view like the all courses view as an administrator, I would have the option to edit that interface. I can just go in and say, I want different columns here. I want different search interfaces. That is Drupal views functionality. And I'm now, without having to code, able to modify the interfaces. And I can create different courses interfaces. Again, if I have graduate schools, they might need different interfaces. So there's no more vendor-specific deliveries where you have to pay money to a vendor to create that. That's all something that the institution can do by itself. And same with the appearance of dashboards, for example. If I have a student dashboard or a teacher dashboard, that's something that also doesn't have to be coded. I can just design that through the Drupal layout builder, adding sections and blocks and putting information on these dashboards. Again, no code required. You can just create that. And the most powerful element is, of course, ECA, events, conditions, actions. That creates all of the functionality. Whatever happens in the system, no matter whether that's application management, courses, curriculum, all of that are ECA configurations. And to give you a quick look into that, so it's really BPMN modeling. So you create models that then define the software functionality. And as all of the software functions are ECA processes, they can work with each other. So you have the unlimited opportunity to orchestrate what happens in the system because all processes can work with each other. And now with AI coming in, it gets very interesting because you can put AI functionality in any of these processes. But I guess, Mel, this is something that you would like to show in one of your next slides.
Okay, great, thank you. So yeah, I think you can see the power of that. Obviously, this is all Drupal, open source. Anyone can create everything that Kirsten was just showing us. But of course, what to create is always the question. When you can create anything, the sky's the limit. Then you have to be very particular in what you start with. And so going back, Kirsten has talked about for universities how we have this this demand to bring everything into one system. But actually, when I joined the company, there was another really interesting aspect for me, which was being able to empower universities to actually digitize services and solutions that were not digitized before. So student volunteering, for instance, there's so much value to be derived through student volunteering for the students themselves and for these amazing programs that are run on campus. But having a technology that is affordable enough to be offered to the program really didn't exist in the market. And creating that from scratch, which is what I had tried to do in my previous company, is really too costly to give them the true value that they deserve. And with OpenCampus, we were actually able to bring what I spent 5 years building as a native app into OpenCampus in just a couple of months and be able to transition our clients over to OpenCampus. So I think that was such an amazing, such an amazing realization to see that you can actually start digitizing processes and delivering better services to students and deriving more value for students and staff alike just by applying this technology to it. So we have at quite a few campuses in the UK, this very extensive student volunteering platform. It's also used by staff and alumni as well. At King's College London, for instance, we have a very big program running there. I just have a little video running you through their site here. You can see it's very visual, very different to what Kirsten showed before. Because it is Drupal, you can, of course, make any style guide that you want on here. You can have different theming. You can really design this the way that you want on the front end, and everything that's in here, all the functionality is created by that digital workflow modeler that Kirsten showed called ECA. And so what you can do with this is really, really quite amazing. And the speed of being able to configure this and get solutions out into the hands of our clients is really exceptional as well. The other thing that is great is whilst these programs are pretty standard as far as supporting volunteering, every campus has very specific needs and very specific safeguarding that they have in place. So with ECA, you can very quickly modify that. So for most of our bundles, most of our solutions, we have an out-of-the-box bundle that covers probably 90% of what you would need, but then the ability to modify that is what makes it really interesting in ECA. So I'll just give you a look at how you would actually do that. If I open here one of these workflows, this is actually a really simple workflow that I'm going to show you just because it's quite powerful to show the value, but it is a very simple one. As Kirsten showed you, because we have extensive functionality on here, we do have quite extensive workflows. Really, you can do anything with this. But what I'm doing is actually creating a AI-generated test question based on a learning objective and a discipline. And I'll quickly show you what that looks like once it's in use, where on the front end, you have a form, you can put in the learning objective, you can put in the discipline, and just save that form. And then it's going to create a test question, multiple choice, with the answer and the explanation. And so this is something that we are using at a few campuses, and it is very powerful in being able to provide additional study materials for students to be able to actually create test questions and speed that up and reduce the cost substantially for the universities in test question creation. And here, as you can see, that ECA model, it's just getting the discipline here, the learning objective and the discipline from the form. And then I'm able to actually go in and put a prompt, and I can choose from any of the large language models. So if I go in here and show you what that looks like, I can choose from, of course we have Bedrock embedded, and this is a very safe way to use the AI, but you have all the other large language models as well that you can go here. Right now I only have OpenAI and Bedrock, but you can install any of them in here directly. And then I'm actually getting a serialized response and being able to save that into the answer and explanation here in the test question.
Yeah, the drop down isn't showing, so we can't see all the different models because that's on the screen share. It doesn't show the list of all the models, but yeah, you would actually see a drop down with a list of all the models.
Oh, I guess there's no way to show that in there. Sorry about that. Okay, great. So that is a little bit of a look into how it works. Obviously, there's a lot of complex things you can do with this, and the purpose of today's talk is not to go into too much detail. I have another example here, which is application automation. So being able to provide an AI recommendation based on a prompt where you can give a score based on the CV and the cover letter submitted at the application stage. Here it's for PhD in computer science, for instance, and we can then have a score recommended here. What that looks like as far as workflow goes is that you are actually only have one workflow to run all of the application processes throughout the system, throughout the campus, but we use a parameter to get a prompt, and then we pass that prompt to the AI evaluation prompt, and we pass the CV information, and then from there we are able to run the prompt, and making any modifications to the prompting and the documentation of this is all very simple because of how the system is storing that in the parameter. So if you need to actually change the prompt, you can just go in here and change the text of the prompt. This is one way, of course, to use this. There are many different ways. You can also put the prompt directly into the AI action itself. And if I go back to my parameter, yeah, so you can, here I'm saying to give it a numerical score and give the explanation, but just by changing this for in each of your programs, you can manage your AI directly from there, your prompt. So as you can see, that is very powerful, that you can directly embed it. You can use AI at multiple steps throughout the workflows as well. And that is a choice. So designing your digital strategy, your digital AI strategy, it just makes it possible to really orchestrate AI across the campus and also have centralized governance. And this is obviously very important. Oh, here's the drop down where you can see all the different models that are there. But as we move forward, last year was the year we really embraced AI on campus and really said, okay, it's not a should we use it or should we not? It was really the year that we started digging in and getting AI embedded in lots of different systems. But the problem is that using AI with system fragmentation, of course, can become a bigger risk and actually amplify chaos rather than a time saver. So what we found before going into the age of AI is that 86% of CIOs are reporting lack of integration between system and workflows as their biggest challenge. And now with the adoption of AI, of course, this is just creating an environment where this is going to be exacerbated. And if you are applying AI on all of your different systems without a centralized strategy and a way to actually manage that centrally, you're going to have governance issues. It's going to slow adoption. And of course, you're not going to be able to adapt and with the changes that are happening in AI. So the fragmentation issue that we identified as the first need for OpenCampus is only becoming more important as we move into the age of AI. But of course, we can't just now, because we have this immediate need, rip out all of the existing systems and now integrate a all-in-one solution. So something that is really interesting with ECA is this ability to create an orchestration layer. So Kirsten was talking about the fact that you can have API endpoints connecting your different systems, bring all of the data that you need to process into OpenCampus, and then create these centralized workflows with the AI embedded to actually have a centralized way of addressing your AI strategy. Kirsten, I don't know if you want to add anything into this piece.
I can add a few numbers because it's quite surprising, like the effect of that. So now we heard about the theory, right? So how we can actually add AI to that. And I mean, it's something that many people might have experienced in the past was that you ask AI something and then the results are sometimes good for certain cases, sometimes actually unusable. And can you really use that in production? Yeah, how much can you rely on AI doing such a process? And our institutions are working with that, and of course over time we found out what really matters. And you might be familiar with the term RAG, retrieval augmented generation, so that we take a lot of information that we pass to the AI to help the AI figure out the context, to understand what this is about, and to then process the information and give the really best possible result. And with this architecture, where we have all the information in one place, and we can basically make sure that whatever the AI needs to process that task is made available, even in the background. So we can offer the end user, the teacher, to ask the AI directly to create a question, basically, create a question for an MCQ exam. And in the background, we will know who is the teacher, what curricula are they teaching, what is actually in the session that they are asking the AI to create questions for. So we have all that information in the background, and we can support the user in getting the best results from the AI by using this retrieval augmented generation concept in the background. So we will make sure that our ECA delivers all the context information around the question that a particular user would have. And the increase in quality and then the quality of the results is so significant that one of the schools that we show, they actually created the whole new medical curriculum fully with AI, and all the exams and all the questions in the assessment. And of course, they did that in an academic way and analyzed it, ran a study on that, and it turned out the quality of the question and the curriculum setup was significantly better than what the experts had designed. All the medical experts that created the earlier versions of the curriculum and the exams, based on scientific standards, what AI delivered in the last round was really superior to that what the humans created in a really expert level complex scenario. So around this whole setup, the architecture here helps us create the best possible results when working with AI. And another aspect that is possible with that framework, where we decide where to put the AI query and which model to use, we can even create multi-model agents, where within one workflow, we are using different models because some model might do a certain task better than the other model, or we allow the models to control each other to verify the results. And with these multi-model agents, we are getting to a whole new dimension of AI usage, because we get to a level of quality output that is usually difficult to achieve or requires a lot of manual work, that you manually have to communicate with all these AI tools. So something very interesting where the architecture that we have with ECA and the ability to use all the different models creates a whole new realm of AI usage. So much about the AI parts. I mean, this is also under continuous development, and our institutions are contributing also best practice examples for that, ECA configurations in the context of AI, which have turned out to work really well. I have one more example here from the Catholic University of Eichstätt-Ingolstadt, where they use that for credit transfer processes, where they pre-analyze what a student with a previous degree has maybe done abroad to see how many of the credits from the previous coursework can be recognized for his current curriculum. And they use that to cut down the processing times from multiple weeks to just a couple of hours. And of course, with a lot less of human effort in that. But I don't know if we have the time to go through all of that process if we want to address a few questions. Important, of course, to show you the resources. I'll take the presenter again, because the resources behind that, all of the code that we are using here is Drupal. You will find that on drupal.org. And I want to highlight, of course, ECA, because that's the core of all the functionality that happens in here. And I've seen Jürgen is in the audience, the father of ECA. So happy for Jürgen if you want to say a few words about that, because I think it's really the most significant tool that has been created in Drupal in the past 10 years. You can download the code, there's videos around that, and through our website we are offering the example configurations that institutions are using. We are starting off now with the English speaking group for a monthly meeting We have that in the German-speaking group where institutions come together and exchange what configurations they have created and discuss problems of what configurations they would like to build and how that can be done. So we are really trying to foster a community here where all the institutions come together and speak about what to create and how to create that next. But I guess in the interest of time and in order to allow the audience to ask a few questions, we would open that now. Any questions around technology stack, what's possible with that, what the challenges are?
I do see that David is typing. He's doing that. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is there like some sort of template that you provide people to kind of start with? It seems a little overwhelming to build out the entire system. So are there sort of standard pieces that you've already set up that people can kind of use and then go from there to customize?
Yeah, exactly. So we have many different bundles, hundreds of different bundles. And as Kirsten was showing with the ECA, the different ECA models there that we have, each of these are easy to migrate from one site to another. So that's something that actually our clients and our network are building those and actually sharing them with each other. So that's something that is quite possible. And then obviously with OpenCampus, when you start working with OpenCampus, we can give you all these different bundles that you can add to your site and that work together. So yeah, Kirsten can tell you a bit more. I'm sure he has something specific he wants to say, but yes, we provide the
yeah.
box.
So we do have a pre-configured standard installation that we can just spin up on AWS that contains the most commonly used configurations. Yeah, so examples for application admission management, courses, curricula, facility management, to give you an idea of how that works. And of course, there's a lot more configurations in the community that we have listed on the new website, actually. So you can install those. You can always just import configurations into ECA to add that functionality. So that makes it easy to start off because, of course, you need probably a couple of weeks to get into ECA. And there's also best practices, of course. So how do I approach a certain function in the correct way, right? So there's also the part about how to build a process beyond the technical aspect. So what is a reasonable architecture behind that? And we have examples prepared for that. Yeah. So how do I store data around the user? How do I store data around courses? How do I divide that into course slots? That's the one that I just showed. So I'll go back to that and show a bit of the architecture after we've answered the questions by David and Jen. So David asks, do you have info to help convince university leadership to make the change? Yeah, so we are updating our website just this week, where we show a lot of information around how the functionality is being used and the metrics. There's even the white papers of a couple of schools that show the efficiency gain of using that technology and the cost reduction, of course, because in the end, if you look at how many different pieces of software KL in that case substituted, they don't need signage systems anymore, they don't need any ERP systems anymore. So how many systems you can substitute and what in the end you save on software costs. So the TCO goes down quite significantly. And Jen is asking, are there any common threads between the various groups regarding what they are hoping to build out next? So we have put them all actually into one group so far. If that grows, we might need to segment that. So there's a group around application admission, around curriculum management. So far, it's one community discussing that, but probably in the future that might require to divide that into channels, but we do that on a monthly call, and we'll also support that with a digital roadmap tool now, so that people can actually suggest configurations that we want to build. And then technically, of course, join the ECA project on Drupal, where you can always comment and collaborate with the development of ECA. So David asks, if you want to contribute upstream some new feature, is that possible to do it openly? Yes, of course. So what you create in ECA is a configuration, and you can export that configuration and share it. We'll create a database on the new website where everybody can share their configurations linked to the different topic areas. So we basically have an overview. We have a map of what is available in the community. And David asks, university uses Drupal for our websites. Can we start small and try out ECA on the cheap to prove? Of course, you just need ECA. If you have existing Drupal, you can install ECA, take some of the workflows that we suggest, or start configuring yourself. All you need is Drupal and ECA. But I guess that's what we offer in the end with OpenCampus is the how to, how do I use Drupal and ECA in the best possible way to achieve the results for specific functionality around the student lifecycle, because that's the value that we add. We're trying to structure that in the best possible way now with creating a library. But if there are any questions, always reach out to us. If you want to start off with that, what are the best principles? We would start with messaging, profiles, and some standard elements. And then working from there is quite easy. So definitely just reach out to us to get a quick kickoff and some documentation around how to start. So let me check if Shanghai has switched over the website already. It's happening within the next days. Partly, it's like a bit by bit update. So you'll see some already today, and by the end of the week, I think all the additional information will be available on the opencampus.com website.
So David has another question. Is this a solution for institutional repositories?
So David, what do you mean by institutional repositories?
I mean, like publications, and I think I saw some things like you had student focused, like thesis.
Yeah, I mean, you can manage thesis with that, but also like KL, the one that I showed in KL, maybe let me just share that again. So their segment, what they have here in research management, they manage all the research projects, the funding around that and so forth, and all the teacher profiles. So they have ORCID integration, so they have synchronization with ORCID, they have all the abstracts of all the people in the system, they create a score by teachers, so they do the complete research profile management in the system as well. This is now in German, that means add publication. So that is part of that. So submitting a publication that's reviewed, then abstract being created. So yeah, that's definitely part.
Sorry, I was just going to say we have about 5 minutes left. So if anybody has any last questions for our speakers.
And I'll just put
Everybody's overwhelmed.
our email addresses here. Obviously, you can see how powerful the tool is. Like I said, the sky's the limit. But what we're doing uniquely at OpenCampus is taking this and really making it purpose-built for educational institutions. And we didn't mention that at the beginning, but we have been doing this, well, Kirsten's been doing this for 14 or so odd years. So we have a lot of intelligence baked into the solutions that we have, the bundles that we have. And those are things that out of the box come when you work with OpenCampus. And then from there, the modification in the ECA is really simple. So getting the exact solution that you want, making those changes to fields, making changes to a workflow is a matter of minutes rather than months, and getting it into into the roadmap. So it really is game changing. I mean, that's one thing that really interested me about OpenCampus when I came on board, is the fact that, managing a technology and having to live by the roadmap and die by the roadmap, being able to actually go in and make those changes myself is really incredible, and build solutions without needing to rely on a developer. So these are, definitely the things that are happening within OpenCampus. Our clients are doing that. Our team is doing that. Everyone that works at OpenCampus, even if they're not developers, can create workflows and modify those workflows in the system. So.
I do have one last question. I was just wondering if part of the sort of elevator pitch for institutional leadership might be around, preventing the need to migrate from tool to tool if you have a variety of solutions on campus. Would you like to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So actually, that's how a lot of our clients start working with OpenCampus. We take those niche needs, like I showed the volunteering, but it can be applications for PhD programs, very specific workflows that it wouldn't be worth investing in the technology to build that out. And they start working with OpenCampus in that way. And then when they see the value of that and how easy it is, they start adding on and filling those gaps that they have across campus. And eventually you do get to the point where there is critical mass and you say, okay, now why don't we just put everything in OpenCampus? But that's definitely not something you have to do from the start. And I think that's a real value about it as well, is that this is something to actually meet those needs that nobody else is meeting, with the potential for that to grow into something that is really usable, or use it as an orchestration tool, like we talked about, pulling data from different systems, processing the data in a fully governed, GDPR protected and safe way, and then passing that data back to your system. So being able to centralize those types of operations that you can't do in other systems, it can be used for that as well. Yeah. Do you want to add anything to that, Kirsten?
Yeah, I mean, we do have the cases where we roll out OpenCampus as the complete and single SIS solution, which is tender processes, where they decided on a migration from one SIS to the other, or where a new school is founded. But that's not the common ones. Yeah, if you look at the numbers, the common way is just how Melissa explained it. You have an existing infrastructure. There's a lot of functionality that you would like to have that the existing infrastructure doesn't provide. You put OpenCampus on top, you do this orchestration of processes, of data modification, you add the AI processing. This is usually something that cannot be done within the existing infrastructure. And then bit by bit, you increase the amount of functionality that you have in OpenCampus, and bit by bit, you can retire legacy systems.
Well, we are out of time. It is the top of the hour. So I just want to thank you both for sharing all the information about OpenCampus. This was a very interesting presentation, and I think it provides a lot of functionality for folks that they have sort of a direct impact on modifying the system. That's kind of an exciting thing. You don't have to go through a lot of layers to get the changes that you want. So I think that's definitely something that's of interest to the folks on this call, and I'm sure other folks that are involved with open source. So again, thank you so much for sharing what you're doing. And hopefully for those of you joining, we really appreciate you being here. And if you have other folks that you think might be interested in this talk, this presentation was recorded, so please feel free to send them the link so that they can view it later on our Apereo YouTube channel. So once again, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for attending, and hope to be in touch soon with everybody.